Hey, what's going on, YouTube? So we are going to start on the front struts for the 2012 Chrysler 200. So we'll get those knocked out as well as the brakes. I'll separate the two videos, but we'll do both. So we'll get hopping. Car's already up on hit the wall. The car's already up on jack stands. So all we got to do is start disassembly. So first thing we'll do is we'll pop the brakes and rotors off since we got to change those anyways. And then we'll pop the strut out, bottom and top, pull that out. And there's actually a strut brace on the top of there. I just noticed that. That's neat. So we'll take all that stuff off and then I'll show you guys the setup for the little clamshell spring compressor thingy I have again, and then we'll get her back together and back on the road because I don't like driving this, but I like driving it more in my truck and putting miles on my truck and blah blah whatever. So let's hop to it. All right, so for doing the front brakes, just like the rear, drive the car, get the wheel off, and make sure you got jack stands. Make sure you got on jack stands. And so what I like to do with calipers, first off, is make them come off a little bit easier. So I like to use a little C-clamp. So I'll put the C-clamp on the caliper, on the back of the caliper, and then I'll push the back of the caliper in and hold onto the pad. Because if you're going to just push on the caliper, you're going to try to smash the caliper and you're not going to do anything. Whereas here, I'm holding onto the cab, the pad, holding onto the pad, and then I'm going to push the caliper this way. So then that'll loosen everything up. So if you can see that. So all it's doing is pushing that piston back into the bore. So now I can bottom that out, or get close to bottoming out, pull that clamp off, and now I should be able to easily pop the caliper off. So, and then the caliper is the same size as the rears. It's a 14. Alright, so now I got the caliper off. I'm going to look at the boots, make sure they're not ripped or torn or anything crazy like that. These all look to be in good shape. So I will just throw them back on the car, or leave them on the car. So I have a coat hanger that I will hang these with. So take the coat hanger and then you're going to hang the caliper from any point on your suspension, but I'm hanging it right there just for this part of the video. So that's just for getting that off, because I'm doing the struts at the same time I'm doing this. So I'll just hang that on the strut, keep it so there's not much tension on your brake line, because you don't want to tear or rip that, because then that opens up a whole other can of worms, and then you have to bleed the brakes like I do for the rear, since I was a hothead and broke some stuff. Alright, so now that we got the caliper off, the caliper's hanging, now we're going to take off the actual caliper bracket itself. And then those are, I think those are 18s? Yeah, those are 18s. So now we'll take this bracket off. It's a bolt on the top and a bolt on the bottom, just like the caliper itself. Alright, so now you got that bracket off. Now, typically, I've never had it to where I haven't had to do this. Pry this bracket off. So now you got the bracket off. The Set that aside, and now you just take the rotor off. And of course, I did the brakes on these last, and I did put anti-seize on the hubs. At least I think I did. I'm not quite sure, but they're a bear to come off. So I'm thinking I didn't put anti-seize on. So all you do is give it a nice little whack. And now your rotor's off. So that's junk, absolutely junk. I'm not sure how this rotor got so roached out, but this rotor definitely took a beating. I can't remember the last time I changed the rotors, but whatever rotors these were, they were garbage. So yeah. And then to get the pads out, same thing. Just tap them out. There. Now pads are out. I'm going to come back in here with a wire wheel, and I'm going to clean these little slots out, and then I'm going to grease them up, and we'll throw the new pads in, throw the rotor on, throw this back on, and that's pretty much it for the front brakes. Easy peasy. So I'm gonna cut this part of the video, and then I'm gonna jump to the struts. So I'll catch back up with you guys in a minute for the brake part. All right, so now that we got everything disassembled for the brakes, it's time for reassembly. So now what I'm gonna go through and do, since I don't have any new these springs, or these little plates, whatever the heck you want to call these. Trouble with words today. I'm going to go through, I'm going to wire brush these, and I'm going to wear eye protection, because the last thing you want is one of these little sharp doodads in your eye. So I'm just going to go through, clean these up, and then I'm going to grease them, and then we can start putting everything back together. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I can't see now anyways, because it's nice and humid out here, so these get foggy immediately. But I'd rather that than lose my eye to a freaking piece of metal flying into it, which I've had a piece of metal in my eye before, and it's not exciting at all. So we'll put this this copper grease in here. I'm not going to load it up. Just going to put a nice little dab will do you in there, and then call it a day. Put our new pads in there. We'll put our new rotor on. But before we put our new rotor on, we're going to anti-seize on the hub. Just a little dab. So got this on there. So we'll put our new pads in. Always make sure you put your pads in the right way, because otherwise you have to take them right back out. And then it's also got a new spring for it, like the rears did. So put that in there. Take my little screw stick. I could have probably put this on before I put the pad in here, but whatever. That was easy too. So now I got this done. I will spray these with brake clean, put my new rotor back on, and then we're ready for assembly for that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of anti-seize all over this hub. So the next time we take the rotor off, it'll come off nice and easy. As well as the wheel studs. I like to anti-seize everything. You know that meme? That meme that goes around where you use anti-seize and you look like the freaking Tin Man from Wizard of Oz? Yeah, that's a real thing. Alright, so that's on. I'm going to wipe this anti-seize off my finger. Otherwise it's going to get everywhere. Yeah, it always helps keeping the rotor as steady as you possibly can to put this bracket back on. Because if you're off a little bit on these bolts, it seems like it's a total pain to put these bolts back in. And obviously where you touch the rotor, if you touch the face, you want to spray that off again with your brake clean, because otherwise you'll get a hot spot from the grease on your fingers. Like with anything else, just good and tight, and you're good to go. If you notice anything, I don't really torque anything unless it's a very crucial component. I mean, I guess by definition, suspension is pretty crucial, but most things have a general torque. And the thing is like the leverage you're going to put on this. Like if I was doing this with a breaker bar, I'd probably be concerned, but I'm not. I'm only going to get so much torque on this, and chances are I'm probably going to be pretty close to the torque value as it is. If I wanted to get like a little bit less torque on it, I'd probably use like a 3/8 drive and 1/4 inch and blah blah and whatever. So yeah, that's the thing. Don't do what I do. If you want to do it correctly, torque it. Go back and put some stink on those after I get this caliper out of my way. Alright, so caliper's good to go, boot's good to go. I'm not really worried about anything. After you set this down, sometimes you can twist this around and your brake line will be all under pressure. Make sure this is nice and loose and where it's supposed to hang. I am going to throw a little bit of copper grease on this piston as well, just on the face of it. Again, not going crazy with anything, just putting a little bit, nice little layer on it and calling it a day. Now slide that over, and then make sure you don't wreck your boots, obviously, for your slide pins. And then for your slide pins, since I threw mine on the floor, I'm going to wipe them up and then re-grease them. And like I said before, make sure you use a high temp grease, and you should be good to go. And you don't have to go crazy greasing these. You don't want a ton of grease on your brakes anyways, because if you do put too much grease on there, a lot of heat transfer, boil the grease, blah blah whatever, and then that grease will end up on everything, and then probably end up on your rotors, then you'll wreck your rotors, and so on and so forth. Again, these bolts are 14, yeah. These bolts for the caliper are 14, and the caliper bracket is a 19. And these the caliper bolts, last time I checked, typically these bolts only get like 10 or 15 foot-pounds. So like that's normally just like a good tighten up, and then just wrap it with your hand, and that's good to go. Never had any issues with doing it that way on any vehicle I've ever owned. So now the caliper's out of my way, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna double check the caliper bracket bolts. All right, so that's pretty much it. What it takes to do the front brakes on a 2012 Chrysler 200. I'm sure there's different cars with the same brake setups. But one thing you do need to remember when you do brakes on any vehicle is once you jump in the vehicle, don't put it in drive right away. Do not put it in drive right away, because all that fluid that you pushed away from the piston needs to go back into the piston and re-engage those brake pads. So when you first get in your car, your vehicle, don't put it in driveway. Pump the brakes until they get hard, and then put it in drive or reverse, and then go break your brakes in. You know, do your 10 to 15 roll, stop, 20 to 30 roll, stop, 30 to 40 roll, stop, and then progressively get more aggressive with your braking and blah blah whatever. If you want to find out the correct way to break in your brakes, either contact your distributor or whatever, or talk to a mechanic, or Google it like everybody else does. But I'm rambling. So until next time, I'll see you guys later, and peace out.